We're happy to have you with us tonight on a little impromptu live cast here on Facebook and YouTube and now Twitter. We have just joined Twitter. You can find us under my name, Daryl T. White, under the Twitter till we can get our Barefoot Believers Hawaii site set up there. But we're happy to have you here tonight. I just wanted to do a quick recap of some things we talked about Sunday night, and you can find that on our first part of Joseph and his brothers, the dysfunctional family, as we looked at Genesis in chapter 42 and 43. What happened with Joseph being betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery in Egypt, and then God's miraculous plan to restore them, their family, and to preserve them, give them a place of safety. People are so much concerned nowadays about safety. They're concerned about preparation, prepping for disaster, famine, pestilence. Every day in the news, we're hearing about new things coming. But I would just like to share that this lesson from the gospel, this lesson from the Word of God in Genesis, is about famine. I mean, they faced a worldwide famine back then, but Joseph had been given the word through the dream of Pharaoh that there would be a 7-year famine, but they stored up the grain in advance. They stored up wheat. And because of storing that wheat, Pharaoh became unbelievably rich. He acquired all the land of Egypt, but also Joseph and his family were able to survive and prosper when they did go to Egypt. And Daniel had prophesied another bad event, but Joseph became the second ruler of all of Egypt next to Pharaoh because God put him in that position. Daniel was another one, another young man, the same age basically, 16 or 17 years old as Joseph when he was captured and taken to Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar. And the book of Daniel tells us how he prospered because he refused to defile himself. He did honor his God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he also had a vision for the future. And his dreams also have a lot of end time significance. But I wanted to finish up with Joseph, that we see Joseph talking to his brothers, and I believe we're getting a cryptic prophetic word through him, in that he told his brothers if they came back to get more grain, see, they didn't know who he was. They had betrayed him and sold him. They thought he was dead, but he had a destiny that had to be fulfilled. So he became the second ruler of Egypt. He did not ever get to go back home to Canaan land, but he was gone 20 years when his 10 older brothers came looking for food, to buy food in Egypt. They had heard there was grain. And I just wanted to share quickly again, they were in a famine. They were in a hard time. They were in a hard place in Canaan land. Jacob, who's now become the name of Israel, called Israel. Jacob and his sons, he had originally had 12 sons, where we get the 12 tribes of Israel from them. But the 10 older brothers, they despised Joseph, who was the younger brother and only the other second. The youngest brother was Benjamin. They were the two sons of Rachel, and they were greatly loved by their father Jacob. The other brothers were sons of Leah, and they were jealous. They didn't like this preferential treatment, and rightly so. But as we talked about last time, that they made a plot to kill Joseph, but then the last minute, some Ishmaelites came along, camels, Bedouin traders, Arabs trading. They came on camels and they sold Joseph to them, and they took him to Egypt, sold him to Potiphar, and then he spent 12 years in prison being falsely accused, and he was then delivered to Pharaoh's palace because of his ability to hear from God and interpret the dreams of the Pharaoh about the coming famine. Well, Daniel was much the same. Daniel was in Babylon, and he was able to interpret the dreams of Nebuchadnezzar. But that was much later. But the main thing is that we had talked about is that in chapter 43, we see Judah, who was the second oldest son. He's talking to his father, who's telling them, go back and buy some grain, buy more grain. But Judah spoke to his father, and he said, the man, he's talking about Joseph, who was the head man there that they had to talk to about food. The man did solemnly protest unto us, saying, ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. They had told him there was a younger brother. They had told him the other brother had died. So it appears that we are getting here an important message that they were not going to be able to see Joseph without bringing their younger brother. And again, Judah says in chapter 43, verse 4, if thou wilt send our brother, this is from the book of Genesis, if thou wilt send our brother with us, we will go down and buy thee food. But if thou wilt not send him, we will not go down. For the man said unto us, ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. Well, this is the poor father's dilemma, Jacob, who has now lost his son Joseph, thinking he's dead. His brothers told him he was killed by a wild animal. He doesn't want to lose Benjamin, the other dear son, the son of Rachel. But we hear again the instructions from Joseph. Now, Joseph is a type of the Messiah. Let's get that straight. Joseph is a type of Jesus Christ. He's a deliverer. He's a savior of the people. He had to go and be betrayed, and he had to be put in the pit, and he had to come out of the pit, and now he's at the right hand of the ruler, just like Jesus was crucified and is at the right hand of the Father. So Joseph, as a type of the Messiah, is telling his brothers, if you want to see me again, see my face, bring your younger brother. You won't see my face without your younger brother. Well, as we talked about last time, the younger brother is Israel, not the father Israel, but the nation Israel. As we look at the future as a prophetic word, it appears that the rapture, the coming of Jesus Christ, coming for his people, his saints, and the church, as represented by the older brothers, Jesus is not going to let us go and not come to get us until we bring our younger brother, which I believe the younger brother is the nation of Israel. And now they're in great peril. They're being attacked from all sides by enemies. They're in Israel. They're in a war in Gaza with terrorists against a terrorist group, Hamas. But now we're looking at what is the prophetic word? Well, it's the same word as Daniel saying, and just to quickly jump to the book of Daniel, chapter 8, verses 3 through 4, he's describing that he sees a vision of a ram, a male sheep with two horns. One horn was higher than the other. One was bigger than the other, and the angel Gabriel comes to Daniel and tells him that this ram represents the kings of Media and Persia, which Persia then became stronger, the higher horn, and became the dominant power of that empire. Well, we know that was a historic empire that did exist, that actually took over from Babylon. They captured Babylon. But let's look at it in the future. There's this ram with this horn, which represents Persia, which is, we know that Persia is modern day Iran. But this ram, we see also gets attacked by then a male goat that comes out of the west, comes out of Europe. And he charges him, and he destroys him, pushes him out. And this male goat, we know, was Alexander the Great in the past history. The Greeks defeated the Medes and Persians. But now again, we look at prophecy as talking about history that was, what is now, and what will come. So we're seeing that it's also given to him that this coming king, this empire that we see with this male goat, will be the Antichrist. The Antichrist will come and will make the one world government, establish the new temple in Israel, make a covenant with Israel, but he would betray then Israel 3.5 years into the tribulation, the 70th week of Daniel. We'll talk about that another time, but I want to get back to this about seeing the younger brother, bring the younger brother. And it put me in mind to remember something Jesus talked about as a parable. He talked about this in Luke chapter 15. He talked about the prodigal son, and that the prodigal son was the younger brother, and he took his inheritance. He left. He departed from the father's house. He was in rebellion against his father, but he repented. And it said that when he was starving and he had spent all the money, he was reduced to feeding swine, feeding pigs in the pig pen. And he was working for a cruel master who wouldn't even let him have the husk of corn that the pigs were eating. And in verse 17 of Luke 15, in the younger brother, it says, when he came to himself, that's a poetic verse for saying when he came, his mind came clear, and he realized what he had done, how foolish he had been. So when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? Well, this is quite a revelation, and sometimes we have to get down, knocked down, and be at our lowest point. You know, they say hit rock bottom. Some people have to get to rock bottom before they will wake up or come to themselves, get their mind come clear. So he did that, and he said, I'm not worthy, but I will go back to my father, and maybe he will bring me in as a hired servant. I cannot be a son. But it said when he arose and he went back to his father's house, that when he was a great way off, he was far away, his father saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servants, bring forth the best robe, put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fatted calf, kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found, and they began to be merry. So here we have a picture again of a father, loving father, reclaiming his lost son and wanting to restore their relationship, their family. But again, here was another son, an older brother, who didn't like this, who was jealous and envious, like the older brothers of Joseph. And it said, Verse 25, now his elder son was in the field, and he came and drew nigh to the house. He heard music and dancing, and he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said unto them, thy brother is come, and thy father has killed the fatted calf, because he hath received him safe and sound. He was angry and would not go in. Therefore his father came out and begged him, to come in, entreated him. And he answered his father, lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgress at any time thy commandment, and yet thou never gave me a kid, baby goat, that I might make merry with my friend. But as soon as this thy son was come, which had devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed him for the fatted calf. He said unto him, son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. It was meet, it was right that we should make merry and be glad, for this thy brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found. Well, we see a beautiful story of reconciliation, but again, the older brother is resentful and doesn't approve of the love and forgiveness that the father shows. But the father explains to him, I have to do this. I have to be thankful and make a big feast to welcome him back. For he was dead, he was gone, but he's alive and he's back. Well, as we look at the split, the division over the 2,000 years that Jesus, the Messiah, came, he came into the people of Israel. He came as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the brother we talked about earlier. And it says the Messiahs talk about also that that the rabbis talk about the Messiah would possibly, would be from the tribe of Judah, but also there's other reference that he is the Messiah ben Joseph, that he's also from the tribe of Joseph, and that he is also Messiah ben David from the tribe of Judah. But the Messiah ben Joseph, we see now the connection here that Joseph was a type of Messiah, and that Joseph was the progenitor of the one that was able to retain the faith of Abraham and to be able to deliver his people from the famine. And they thrived in Egypt then. For 400 years they thrived. But they were also then brought under slavery. And in the end, Moses came as the next deliverer, the lawgiver, and brought them out. He brought them into Canaan land. But an interesting side note, Joseph had also prophesied that when they did eventually leave Egypt, the children of Israel, that he told them to take his bones with them. He didn't want to be left in Egypt. And if you watch the old movie 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston, you will see a cart in that movie when they get to the Red Sea with the sarcophagus on top. That's Joseph. That's his mummified remains. 400 years later, he's being taken back to Canaan land. So we can see that we have a deliverer. And even when things get rough and when we are starving or we feel like there's no hope, we have hope through Jesus Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God, Son of the line of David, the line of Judah, and the line of Joseph. We thank God for Joseph, for his example for us of being an excellent man and an honest man, but a forgiving man. He forgave his brothers. And that we see that the prophecies are coming to pass day by day. Iran is attacking us in Europe, in Jordan. American servicemen have died even the last few days under surprise attacks from Iran. Well, we see this coming to pass, the Bible prophecy. So we thank God. We thank God that we have a word, that we have hope, but Jesus cared enough to tell us what's coming. So put your faith in him, follow Jesus, and we love you. We want to see you the next time, and we'll be back talking about Daniel in chapter 8 and the rest of the book of Daniel. Thanks for joining us. God bless you. Aloha from Honolulu, Hawaii. Farewell and good night. Thank you.